Elias, the former captain of the Divine Legion, is facing a cruel truth. Right after Elias and his squad defeated the enemy, everything began to change. A mysterious smile appeared, signaling that a dark conspiracy was being set into motion. A booming echo resonated as magical power surged from the fingertips of the one confronting Elias. On May 22, 2125, the S-rank annihilation mission was completed, but Elias collapsed in a pool of blood. In that final moment before death, Elias was horrified to realize that he and his comrades were merely pawns for the gods. Elias's hand went limp, his breath slowly fading away amidst the desolate battlefield. Yet, Elias was stunned to come face to face with the very person he had just struck down. A provocative greeting echoed through the darkness. Lucan appeared with a ghostly aura. The enemy who had just been destroyed now stood there, filled with arrogance. Lucan made an insane offer, promising to send Elias back to the past to change everything. Hatred flared up, and Elias clenched his fists so tightly that his shackles shattered. Elias vowed to finish off Lucan and those cruel gods as well. Elias's fury engulfed the dark space. Elias stood there, confronting the grim reality that was crushing his will. Satisfied with the answer, Lucan decided to grant him an additional gift. A ghostly heart pulsated, and Lucan drew it out as a reward to seal their contract. Lucan's eyes glowed, filled with calculation and malice. Elias couldn't help but wonder why Lucan chose him for this pact. Lucan revealed his plan, demanding that Elias find and release the remaining demon lords. Lucan wanted to turn them into weapons to use against the gods. Lucan sneered, claiming that the gods had brought this disaster upon themselves. Lucan wanted to burn this rotten world to the ground, a world built upon the suffering of others. Carrying Lucan's grudge and resolve, Elias turned back time by 20 years. Elias was shocked to realize he had truly returned, armed with the power from the heart Lucan had left behind. This new power helped Elias level up at a dizzying speed. Monsters emerged, surrounding Elias. Elias faced the horde of monsters, his level skyrocketing incessantly. With a lightning-fast strike, Elias unleashed a finishing move on the monsters. Magical currents erupted as Elias officially began his journey to change his destiny. The system vibrated, and an important notification popped up. Elias had officially obtained a new job class. Information regarding the level 1 Cloud Mage class appeared. Elias could flexibly switch between job classes at any time. Not stopping there, Elias successfully awakened the Star Mage job class as well. Elias could not hide his astonishment at his own rapid changes. The notification screen confirmed that Elias had officially acquired the E-rank Star Mage class. Elias's ability to control elements had reached its maximum potential. Explosive power surged, engulfing his body. Following that power, Elias successfully awakened the Lightning Mage class. Painful memories came flooding back. Elias held his mother tightly in a pool of blood, screaming in hopeless despair. Terrible news struck. Elias was devastated to learn that his loved one had passed away after the surgery. Elias was struck numb. Everything seemed to collapse right before his eyes. The people who mattered most to Elias left him one by one, leaving behind an indelible pain in his heart. A flash of determination ignited in Elias's eyes. He would never allow that tragedy to repeat itself again. In this lifetime, Elias swore he would change everything. Elias confronted Lucan, the one who had caused all his suffering. He gripped his weapon tightly, ready to strike. The system activated, and energy began to surge. Adrenaline surged through Elias's veins, pushing his power to a new threshold. Though Oblivion's skill evolved, Elias coldly finished off Lucan. Lucan screamed as his entire awakened power was completely destroyed by Elias. Elias looked straight at Lucan, declaring that he was stripping him of his status. Lucan was now nothing more than a useless shell, stripped of all his abilities. Elias comforted his mother, assuring her that everything was fine now. Elias reminded his mother to get a medical checkup as soon as she had the chance. The surgery was a complete success, and everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Elias's family said their goodbyes, urging him to take care of himself. Elias smiled. He had successfully changed the future for those most important to him. Sanhaven City appeared before them, the place where Elias's new journey would begin. This was the holy land of the divine race and simultaneously the haunting hometown of Chris. A sudden system notification rang out, opening a cruel new chapter in Elias's destiny. Thanks to his outstanding performance in the combat simulation, Elias reached Sanhaven, but he also caught the eye of the Thebes family. The opponent facing Elias eyed him meaningfully, recalling his perfect record in the D-rank dungeon. But hidden behind the glitz and glamour of the city in the clouds lay a horrific truth. The upper class enjoyed a heavenly life, where those known as the divine race wallowed in decadent luxury. Below was a cage confining all who dared to resist, where humans and Samuel's former soldiers were tormented together. They were shackled, forced into backbreaking labor in an endless darkness. Elias did not flinch. He bluntly declared his participation in this hunting festival. Elias exploded with power, swearing to put on the most insane performance that those up above had ever witnessed. In the deepest depths, Samuel was shackled and suspended from a magic ceiling pillar. In that very abyss, Elias encountered one of the remaining 6 demon lords, none other than Liam. The sound of iron chains clanked harshly and demonic power began to release from the seal. Dark purple magical energy spread, shattering the silence of the abyss. Liam wore an excited smile as he watched the seal break. The frenzied demon lord was finally unleashed. A thunderous collision occurred, with dust and smoke obscuring the view. Liam revealed his true form as a giant dragon, an SSS-ranked demon lord with destructive power. Liam's appearance left his enemies reeling from his overwhelming power. And along with Liam, a lightning strike descended. Lightning tore through the sky, striking down with terrifying force. The sturdy tower shook and collapsed under the immense power. The tower's structure twisted, with debris scattering everywhere. The structure of the city in the clouds stood on the verge of total collapse. Liam, in his dragon form, charged straight into the wreckage, sweeping away everything in his path. The glory of the divine race is now nothing but ashes. Everything has shattered, an old era has officially come to an end. Liam is grateful to Elias for restoring the freedom of the skies to the demons, a debt Liam swears to remember for the rest of his life. Liam asserts that he will always be waiting. Whenever Elias calls, Liam will be there in an instant. Both are in agreement, determined to eradicate the rule of the gods once and for all. Elias smiles enigmatically, looking forward to the day he reunites with Liam. Elias's hunt officially begins from this moment. The aftershocks of the battle still linger, leaving everyone nearby in utter shock. Brilliant leaderboard appears, honoring the most exceptional individuals with the highest scores in the competition. The final results of the hunting festival have been announced, with Elias rising to the top spot with a total of 1750 points. After a hunting festival filled with countless dramatic twists, the winner has finally been revealed. Lucan approaches, acknowledging the outstanding performance that helped Elias secure the lead. The prestigious reward appears, emitting a brilliant glow right before Elias's eyes. Elias stares intently at the reward, his eyes reflecting a powerful sense of determination. The sound of the chest latch clicking open, and Elias steps forward to claim the spoils of war he rightfully earned. The system confirms that the S-rank equipment, the sword Rivuus and the oracle ring, now belong to Elias. Elias grips the hilt of the sword, feeling a surge of power coursing from the blade of Rivuus. Elias swings the blade, and Rivuus tears through the air with sharp, powerful slashes. A look of resolve lights up Elias's eyes, signaling that a challenging new chapter is unfolding before him. 0. Elias stands silently beside the precious item, while those around him seem to be using magic to examine something. 1. The woman is amazed by the rare S-rank weapon. She cannot help but marvel at this national treasure and wonders if it has ever been honed before. 2. Elias observes intently, his expression pensive, while a companion stands beside him, clearly showing signs of anxiety. 3. Elias eyes turn cold as that name echoes in his mind. For envy surges within him. Elias is bitter as he watches Elias land the finishing blow on the boss monster right before his eyes. 5. Elias' hands tremble in the air, consumed by feelings of helplessness and rage. 6. The fatty screams in a fit of fury. He cannot accept that his prize was snatched right from under his nose. 7. Lee Youngmin closes his eyes to endure, red electricity crackling around his fingers as a testament to his utter frustration. 8. Elias's appearance at the last second has ruined all of Lee Youngmin's plans. 9. Elias lurks in the shadows, the presence of that S-rank weapon feeling like an insult to him. 10. Elias' fists clench tight, his dissatisfaction gradually turning into action. 11. Elias calmly rotates the weapon in his hand with a confident and composed demeanor. 12. Elias's gaze sweeps over the weapon, a flash of surprise crossing his face. 13. A brutal kick lands. Lee Youngmin fails to react in time to the surprise attack. 14. The fatty continues to rain hateful kicks upon Lee Youngmin without a shred of mercy. 15. The fatty roars, his contempt for Lee Youngmin evident in every word. 16. Blood splatters as Lee Youngmin is mercilessly stomped on by the fatty. 17. The fatty's rage shows no sign of stopping. He continues to torment Lee Youngmin under his feet. 18. The fatty screams about the massive amount of money just lost, his regret turning into cruelty. 19. An object is thrown forcefully, leaving an empty space behind. 20. Eugene Ho appears with a calm demeanor, ordering the fatty to stop this madness at once. 21. As onlookers witness the scene, Eugene Ho reminds them that many people are watching. 22. The fatty freezes, the name Thebes uttered with obvious caution. 23. The fatty attempts to suppress Lee Youngmin, wanting to assert his dominance through brutality. 24. The fatty grabs Lee Youngmin's hair, forcing him to submit in the name of the gods. 25. Eugene Ho watches from above, contemptuously calling Elias a petty trickster. 26. Elias glances toward Eugene Ho, his eyes full of vigilance. 27. The fatty doesn't let up, continuing to crush Lee Youngmin, asserting that he is no match for Gannicus. 28. Elias's eyes narrow, he is observing everything with deadly calm. 29. Eugenio maintains a composed expression, though the name Gannicus seems to haunt his mind. 30. Thebes stands high on a floating platform, coldly ordering those below to engage in a real battle to settle their grievances. 31. In the name of the Son of God's power, Thebes loudly announces that a new event is about to begin. 32. It is the battle of the awakened ones. 33. The two opponents called forth are none other than Elias and Gannicus. 34. The reward for the winner will be the entire sum of 100 million that Thebes just confiscated. 35. The unexpected declaration leaves those around in shock. 36. They cannot believe that Thebes is actually forcing Elias and Gannicus to face each other in a deathmatch. 37. Thebes' eyes lock onto Elias as if waiting for a reaction from him. 38. Thebes questions Elias asking how many more secrets he is hiding beneath that facade. 39. Elias remains calm, his expression not wavering in the slightest under Thebes' pressure. With an enigmatic tone, Thebes asks if Elias knows anything about the disaster that just occurred. The chubby man sneers, not expecting Thebes to see through the situation so quickly. Thebes issues an ultimatum, forcing the chubby man to recover all the lost funds within this very match. If he fails again, the price the chubby man will have to pay will be incredibly steep. The chubby man threatens to personally pay a visit to Elias hometown if the results aren't as desired. This direct threat makes Elias shudder, his eyes clearly showing extreme tension. Thebes maintains a calm expression, waiting for the final answer. Thebes coldly asks if the awakened ones have any objections to this decision. Lee Youngmin, despite being in a difficult situation, bows his head in acceptance, offering no opposition. Elias understands clearly that when Thebes invokes the power of the Son of God, refusing is tantamount to suicide. Faced with the silence of everyone, Thebes is satisfied with this outcome. Ground shakes, and a section of the arena floor rises, forming a separate battle platform. Thebes declares that this is the arena meant for them. Elias and Gannicus stand opposite each other, the atmosphere thickening with killing intent. Thebes lays out the simple rules: being killed, surrendering, or being knocked off the platform all count as a loss. Elias can't believe his eyes. Is this really happening right in front of him? Everyone around appears worried for Elias. Thebes continues to emphasize the name Elias. Thebes coldly remarks that Sky City has gone through a day full of volatility. Intuition tells Thebes that the culprit behind everything is hiding right here in this crowd, someone who has been concealing their true power all this time. Eugenio stands before Elias, deep in thought as he asks whether participating in this tournament is truly a coincidence. Elias listens quietly, his gaze showing caution in response to the suspicions Eugenio has just raised. Determination shows clearly on Elias's face. He does not want external factors to shake his goal. Elias replies frankly, asserting that his top priority right now is to constantly grow stronger. Eugenio smiles enigmatically, accepting that answer as a matter of course. Eugenio turns and walks away, leaving a wish of good luck to Elias and Lee Youngmin, who are standing opposite each other. Elias realizes that Eugenio has begun connecting all the dots toward him, and he understands that the time for hiding is over. A burst of power erupts from Elias, causing the surrounding space to shake violently. Elias activates his energy, confronting Lee Youngmin head-on, who is enveloped in a cold aura of slaughter. Lee Youngmin's gaze turns icy, ready for a no-holds-barred battle with Elias. Elias focuses intensely, all his senses trained on Lee Youngmin before him. Elias is now a wanted man, hunted relentlessly after severely wounding a member of the God clan and fleeing to his hometown of Manga. The gods have dispatched their army to hunt Elias down. The orders are clear: capture him alive if possible, but if he resists, they are authorized to decide his fate on the spot. Back in his hometown of Manga, Elias sits quietly, completely unaware that his pursuers have already tracked him down. Thebes only knows how to drown his sorrows in alcohol, indifferent to the fact that the world is closing in on him. Elias coldly announces that anyone blessed by the gods has a tracking device implanted in their heart. No matter how far he runs, there is no escaping the pursuit. Elias slams his bottle down, calmly retorting that no one has ever managed to slip through their grip before. If death is inevitable, Elias decides he will face it right here on his home soil. A burst of power erupts. Elias summons his weapon, ready for a fight to the death. Murderous aura surrounds Elias, signaling the beginning of a ruthless confrontation. Elias stands firm, his piercing gaze locked onto the one being hunted. The monsters are ordered to attack, tasked with tearing Elias limb from limb. Thebes casually sips his drink, mocking the incompetence of those currently fighting. With a mere flick of his fingers, Thebes effortlessly annihilates the monsters as if crushing insects. A subordinate reports that Elias has set foot on the island. Thebes gives a curt reply and continues to enjoy his entertainment. Thebes wears a sinister smile, eager to place a wager on who will be the first to fall. On the battlefield, Elias and Elias stand face to face, the tension thick enough to cut with a knife. Elias reflects on the past, back when she still stood on the side of the gods. Back then, Elias was the one being hunted, standing on the complete opposite side of the front lines. Elias admits that in the past she had failed to see the true nature of things. In the eyes of the gods, they were never anything of significance. They were merely insects waiting to be crushed whenever the gods grew bored. Elias focuses his energy, his blade glowing with a blinding light. The name Elias echoes with fierce determination. Elias swings his sword, declaring that they have returned to the stage the gods built for them to play their parts. Thebes laughs with glee, finding this game more intriguing than ever. Thebes shouts loudly, demanding that Elias snap out of it. Thebes reminds Elias to remember his roots. Don't forget all the people in the small town of Manga who are waiting for you. Elias is shaken, his eyes filled with anxiety as he realizes the direct threat to his hometown. Elias's eyes burn with resolve. Even if the city in the sky were to collapse, his will remains unshaken. Elias grips his weapon tightly, asserting that all attempts at change are futile. A deafening clash of metal rings out as Elias confronts Thebes head-on. The battle between the two entities begins. Elias unleashes a storm of attacks, viewing Thebes as nothing more than mere vermin. The pressure from the horrific battle sends those nearby into a panic, with screams for help echoing amidst the ruins. Elias doesn't hesitate, his gaze is ice-cold and sharply focused as a surge of magical power flows directly into his weapon. Elias's speed keeps Thebes on his toes as he closes in with a flurry of powerful strikes. Another head-on collision sparks, with flames flying from the point of impact. Elias is forcing Thebes into a corner. Elias stomps hard on the ground, building momentum for a lightning-fast counterattack. A thunderous kick lands squarely on Thebes, the booming sound making space itself feel like it's trembling. Shards of ice shatter upon impact as Elias's power completely overwhelms Thebes. Fragments of magic rain down on the ground, a testament to the terrifying power just unleashed. Elias doesn't give Thebes a second to breathe. He spins his weapon, ready for the next wave of attacks. A blast of magical light sweeps across the battlefield as Elias maneuvers shards of ice to strike Thebes from all directions. Elias growls, every attempt at resistance from Thebes rendered meaningless before this onslaught. Elias leaps into the air, channeling all his strength into a swift, decisive finishing blow. Elias coldly declares that Thebes' resistance is nothing compared to his grand scheme. Elias closes in on Thebes, his weapon glowing intensely. His plan is steadily reaching its climax. Thebes breaks into a cold sweat, his panic evident as he realizes the sheer gap in power between him and Elias. A horrific explosion erupts. Elias intends to sow absolute terror into Thebes' mind. The surrounding onlookers are horrified by the collision, as Elias' power far exceeds anything they could have imagined. They exclaim in shock, realizing that Elias and Thebes are not human but true monsters. Dust and smoke obscure the view, the echoes of the explosion still lingering, yet Elias stands firm in the heart of the battlefield. Emerging from the smoke, Elias appears, his fist ready for the final strike. Elias delivers a critical blow, his weapon piercing through Thebes' defenses in a moment of stunned silence. Thebes collapses, a deep gaping wound on his chest. Elias has brought the battle to a ruthless end. Elias stands there, looking down at Thebes, his low voice resonating with authority. Elias leans close to Thebes' ear, preparing to deliver a final, haunting ultimatum. Smirk curls his lips. Elias has fully taken control of the game, crushing all of Thebes' hopes. Thebes is stunned by the turn of events, his eyes wide with utter disbelief. Elias faces Gannicus head-on in an intense battle, the air thick with killing intent. Without hesitation, Elias locks his piercing gaze onto Gannicus, issuing a challenge filled with overwhelming pressure. In response, Gannicus wears a haughty grin. The confidence of one blessed by the gods remains unshaken. But that smile quickly fades as Gannicus is struck with shock, realizing that Elias's power is no trivial matter. With rapid footsteps, Elias unleashes his speed, lunging like a bolt of lightning that makes the floor tremble. Distance between Elias and Gannicus closes in a flash as Elias aggressively takes the initiative with an overwhelming aura. Elias grips his weapon tightly, every muscle tensed and ready for the decisive strike. Gannicus is still stunned, his face etched with doubt as he witnesses the true extent of Elias's capability. Outside the arena, the crowd begins to stir, witnessing Gannicus being pushed into a corner. The manager screams in fury, urging Gannicus to end the match quickly. Gaining his composure, Gannicus leaps into the air to launch a counterattack. The weapon in Gannicus's hand slashes through the air, creating powerful, whistling sounds. Elias remains unfazed, leaning aside to narrowly dodge Gannicus's lethal strike. Gannicus's blade strikes follow one after another, surrounding Elias in a torrential downpour of attacks. Elias counters in a blink, the sound of metal clashing between him and Gannicus rings out sharply across the arena. Gannicus grits his teeth, pouring all his strength into the tip of his blade, determined to pierce through Elias's defense. The manager can't believe his eyes, shrieking frantically as he sees Elias gaining the upper hand. A spectator stands frozen, astonished by Elias's miraculous display in the face of life and death. Another man smirks, reminding everyone of the massive prize money awaiting the winner. Wealth and glory, these are the reasons why Elias can never afford to back down. Elias swings his weapon, a powerful blow crashing straight into Gannicus, sending him flying backward. Gannicus staggers, struggling to regain his balance, but Elias is already closing in. Elias pours every ounce of energy into the finishing move, the space around them seemingly vibrating. Each of Elias's footsteps leaves a mark on the floor, pushing Gannicus into a dead end. The crowd roars with excitement, witnessing Elias step by step claiming victory over Gannicus. Elias erupts, channeling his remaining strength into the final blow, leaving Gannicus no room to breathe. The strike lands true, and Gannicus collapses to the shock of everyone watching. The manager is shattered, he cannot believe that his trump card, Gannicus, has been defeated. Elias stands tall, looking down at the defeated Gannicus, concluding the astonishing performance. Elias activates his skill, creating an icy phantom that lunges toward Gannicus. As Gannicus reveals his true position, Elias wastes no time in launching a lightning-fast attack. Elias's focus is absolute, his killing intent radiating intensely. A booming sound of impact echoes as Elias lands a precise hit on Gannicus. Gannicus is knocked out of the arena, leaving the observers in utter awe. The crowd erupts into cheers, fueled by the overwhelming power Elias has just displayed. A man in a sharp suit cannot hide his extreme excitement at this spectacle. Gannicus laughs mockingly, convinced that his plan was flawless. Elias maintains a calm expression, his cold eyes fixed directly on Gannicus. Elias kneels on the arena floor, facing Gannicus, who looms haughtily above him. Gannicus falls into deep thought, beginning to doubt the turn of events in the match. Gannicus realizes that Elias has been intentionally holding back throughout the entire duel. Suspicion surges within Gannicus as he questions Elias's true motives. Elias stands his ground, an overwhelming aura radiating and engulfing the entire space. Elias frankly admits his defeat, his gaze unwavering and steady. In a flashback, Elias unleashes his finishing blow, his blade gleaming as it lunges toward Gannicus. Elias realizes the gap in their power levels, yet he still finds himself unable to strike Gannicus down. Every one of Elias's attacks is blocked. Gannicus stands like an impenetrable fortress. Even when facing death, Gannicus stands firm and resilient, with no intention of retreating. The battle drags on relentlessly from sunrise until dusk. Finally, Elias finds an opening and strikes the finishing blow against Gannicus. Gannicus collapses, his breath slowly fading under the tip of Elias's blade. A warning signal sounds, Elias turns his head, and everything begins to become clear. The death knell rings, and Elias finally understands Gannicus's true intention. Elias's eyes widen as he realizes the silent sacrifice Gannicus has made. Gannicus had been trying to stall the fight so his family could safely evacuate the danger zone. Gannicus's loved ones are painfully leaving their homeland before the order for total destruction arrives. Elias stands stunned, realizing that Gannicus used his own life to trade for everyone else's survival. Amidst the ruined battlefield, Gannicus falls, wheezing his final plea, "End this already." Elias stands motionless, looking down at the dying Gannicus at his feet. Without a moment of hesitation, Elias channels all his power into his sword and delivers a final strike to Gannicus's chest. Gannicus closes his eyes, accepting the destiny that has been laid out for him. Elias looks down at Gannicus coldly and declares, "In this battle, you are the true victor." Elias calmly touches his ear to communicate with his team. Report complete. Gannicus has been dealt with. Gannicus suddenly snaps awake, his eyes wide with utter shock. Gannicus is stunned to realize Elias didn't kill him but only stripped away his awakened power and destroyed the tracking device in his heart. Gannicus struggles to stand, watching Elias's back as he walks toward the coast, filled with doubt. Why? Gannicus, once the strongest awakened in the Manga region, is now just a name on a wanted list. Gannicus's portrait is stamped as wanted, marking the end of his glorious days. Elias gazes toward the horizon, thinking to himself, since Gannicus resisted, the fate of his life is mine to decide. Elias turns back, his eyes sharp but filled with empathy. Unlike me, Gannicus, you managed to find your mother in time. Elias declares firmly, so keep on living, Gannicus, your family is still waiting for you there. Elias walks away, leaving behind his final advice: run far away, leave this world if you must, and find a place where the divine race will never find Gannicus. A resolute declaration echoes through the air: keep living, Gannicus. Elias looks straight ahead, his gaze more determined than ever. Elias resolves, let the two of us build a world where no one has to run from anything ever again. A faint smile touches Elias's lips, marking the beginning of a new journey. Amidst the desolate wasteland, soldiers remain on high alert before the carcass of the giant monster that has just been brought down. Orion, dressed in a sharp, elegant suit, stands at the entrance, ushering guests into the luxurious buffet banquet of the Thebes family. On the tables, exquisite delicacies shimmer under the lights, inviting the guests to savor the rewards of their hard-fought battles. The food is meticulously displayed, from roasted chicken to fragrant pastries, creating an enchanting festive atmosphere. The grand banquet hall, featuring a central fountain, is filled with guests leisurely enjoying the opulence. A guest can't hide their excitement, exclaiming in delight as they feast on premium crab, a delicacy reserved only for high-ranking officials back home. Mary cannot help but be amazed by the impeccable cleanliness of the restaurant, a stark contrast to the chaotic scene outside. In a corner, Elias sits with Mary and their teammates, calmly enjoying their meal. There is a sharp contrast between the festive atmosphere and the pensive expressions of those enjoying the food. Elias quietly observes his surroundings, while the atmosphere at the table remains perfectly normal. Man hands Elias a piece of cake, treating it as a reward for his efforts. The man mentions Elias's contribution in recovering the 100 million, to which Elias responds with icy composure. Suddenly, the piece of cake drops to the floor, leaving an unsightly stain right before everyone's eyes. The man begins to lecture, demanding that Elias reflect on his own mistakes. The atmosphere becomes suffocating as the pressure from the man weighs heavily on Elias's shoulders. Elias's gaze turns cold, a resolve that remains unshaken despite the threats. The man grabs Elias by the hair, mocking him for daring to defy orders and breaking the communication device. A powerful punch lands, sending Elias crashing to the floor to the shock of those nearby. The man growls a warning, asserting that this is the last chance Elias will ever get. Blood trickles across the floor as Elias lies there, enduring the brutal oppression. The man does not let up, continuing to threaten Elias with the safety of his sister. Elias's eyes remain unbroken, even as he lies in a pool of his own blood. The sight of Elias subdued at the feet of the powerful makes the tension in the room reach a breaking point. Elias stands there, his expression calm but filled with steely determination. Orion raises a glass to toast Elias, and the festive air seems to return as if nothing had happened. Orion expresses surprise and pride that Elias unexpectedly secured the leading position. Elias listens with a calm expression, showing no sign of being moved. Elias coldly reminds Orion of the deadly danger within the Black Mist Forest, where Orion himself did not stop him from entering. Amidst the luxury, Orion swirls his wine, skillfully steering the conversation toward the bond between him and Elias. Glasses clink as Orion makes an implied request. Elias must stop Mary if she ever ventures into danger again. Elias calmly takes a sip of his wine, staring coldly ahead, completely unmoved by Orion's warning. Orion smiles cryptically, asserting that protecting one another is the obvious duty of comrades. Suddenly, a stranger appears, excitedly cheering at the presence of so many powerful individuals at today's hunting festival. With an ambitious grin, he declares that he will choose someone blessed by the gods right here and now. The atmosphere in the hall turns suffocating, with all eyes fixed on the man standing in the center. Orion and those around him cannot help but gasp in astonishment upon hearing the title God Blessed being used. Elias coldly cuts in, beginning to analyze the world order from the top of the food chain. Elias asserts that the highest position on the pinnacle of glory belongs to none other than the 5 great gods. Shadowy figures of power emerge, representing the entities who hold the power of life and death in this world. Immediately below them are the direct bloodlines of the gods, those known as the top-tier nobility, numbering only 100. Next are those blessed by the gods, the second-tier nobles, a highest threshold a normal human could ever hope to reach. Because of that rarity, everyone craves it, willing to fight just for the chance to become one of the God-blessed. Orion listens intently as Elias reveals there are only 2 paths to achieving this noble title. The first way is to pour all your strength into serving the Divine Legion, earning undeniable, glorious achievements. The second way, simpler yet much harder, is to catch the eye of a member of the God race and be gifted a medal by them. Every member of the God race has the right to choose an awakened person to be their personal bodyguard for life. The truth is revealed, leaving those around in a panic. They cannot believe the nobleman is actually targeting Elias. Orion is utterly shocked. He cannot accept that Elias could so easily gain such an absurd level of favor. Elias maintains a cold expression, continuing to explain the fame and power that this position brings. However, the nobleman begins to show his true colors, smirking as he talks about the scenario if the chosen one happened to be a depraved person. He threatens that in such a case, the chosen one's entire life would become an unending nightmare. A man collapses to the floor, blood flowing out, a testament to the cruelty of those in power. Nobleman's retinue immediately protests, arguing that he already has a chosen one and cannot arbitrarily appoint another. The nobleman flies into a rage, barking at his subordinates to think before they speak. He declares that his sister has yet to make her decision, and he is only here to help her choose the right person. The nobleman stares at Elias with a calculating gaze, and tension permeates the entire room. Elias can no longer keep his cool, bluntly declaring that he cannot stand being around the man for even another second. Nobleman stands frozen, his face clearly showing anger and surprise at Elias's defiant attitude. Elias stands there calmly, his red and white hoodie with black accents standing out on his slender frame. Elias's gaze turns sharp and he coldly remarks, "The way you look at others just makes me want to punch you in the face." Orion seems to lose his initial arrogance, trembling as he mutters, "Then let me show you what will happen." Orion thrusts his hand forward, his voice strained as he decides, "I choose her to be the one blessed by the gods." Mary is stunned, exclaiming in disbelief, "Orion." Orion reaches out, forcing Mary into a position where she cannot refuse. The fat man points his finger confidently, declaring that he has chosen this girl to be the one blessed by the gods. Orion is stunned, her brown eyes widening in sheer astonishment at this unexpected selection. Whispers break out among the crowd. No one can believe the fat man passed over Elias to choose Orion. Some onlookers speculate that the fat man is merely choosing someone for his sister, suggesting an awakened female would be a more suitable fit. The atmosphere turns heavy as Orion clenches her fists in indignation. Orion trembles, calling out for her brother in desperation. Orion stands there, facing the fat man while surrounded by prying eyes. Alice King is shaking uncontrollably. She has no desire to become the one blessed by the gods under this man's hand. A slap lands with a sharp, stinging sound that echoes through the air. Everyone around is dumbfounded, unable to believe what they just witnessed. The fat man grits his teeth as he demands that Alice King submit to his will. The fat man coldly retorts, asking if she truly thinks she needs a guardian. Alice King lowers her head, her voice choked with fear. The fat man's rough hand rests on Alice King's head, an act of dominance. He gloatingly praises her for being a good girl and knowing how to obey. The fat man mocks and criticizes Alice King for daring to walk around without a guardian by her side. Onlookers start gossiping, suggesting the fat man is simply looking for amusement to fill his lonely nights. They marvel at the fat man's eye for talent, though they regret missing out on the opportunity themselves. Orion responds bluntly to the fat man's feigned concern. Orion asserts that she is still a student and wants to focus on her education. She is determined to earn her place in the Holy Guild through her own merits. Orion proclaims loudly that she will become a blessed one through her own worthiness, not because she was handpicked. Another woman unexpectedly intervenes, revealing that Orion has already enrolled in their academy. The woman expresses surprise at this newfound information. The fat man is furious. He never imagined that people like them would dare to question the divine laws. The fat man bellows that he belongs to the divine race. Who dares to doubt him? Guards begin to advance, their heavy footsteps sounding menacing. The guards tighten their grip on their weapons, ready to carry out their leader's orders. Orion and those around her are shaken by the rapidly escalating tension. The fat man raises his voice, reiterating his choice of Orion as the one blessed by the gods. The air grows suffocating as the fat man steps closer to Orion. The fat man wears an arrogant smirk, ordering Orion to kneel and thank him for this favor. Elias stands there, his eyes darkened with fury at the fat man's attitude. Orion is overwhelmed. She hesitates to protest, but her words seem stuck in her throat. A subordinate speaks up, urging Orion to show gratitude for being chosen. The man continuously criticizes Orion's attitude, claiming she is looking at the situation with the wrong perspective. Elias watches silently, his patience pushed to the absolute limit. The bystanders laugh, mocking the weak resistance of the mere mortals. Orion trembles, knowing only how to clasp her hands in prayer amidst her immense fear. The fat man stands there, sipping his wine with a relaxed air, as if watching a fascinating play. The entire room was engulfed in a deathly silence, with everyone holding their breath in anticipation of what was to come. Elias stood isolated amidst the ring of spear-wielding guards, a cold glint flashing in his eyes. In that very moment, everyone suddenly realized the harsh truth. Before the overwhelming power of those who claimed to be gods, they were nothing. A piercing sound rang out as a fork slammed into the fruit plate, cutting through the tense atmosphere. The fat man approached Orion, the pressure he exuded leaving her unable to move. Picking up an apple slice from the plate, the fat man casually promised to treat Orion like family. That sweet promise carried an underlying creepiness that left Orion trembling with terror. Just as the fat man was about to touch Orion, a surge of green energy exploded. In the blink of an eye, Elias moved with unimaginable speed. The fat man was stunned to realize that Elias had single-handedly reset the rules of the game. With eyes burning with intensity, Elias declared that everything was now under his control. A powerful punch landed squarely on the fat man's face, shattering his arrogance. The fat man was sent flying, utterly crushed by Elias's power. Everyone around was shell-shocked, unable to believe their eyes at what had just transpired. Elias didn't stop, he lunged forward with terrifying speed. The fat man collapsed to the floor, his agonizing screams echoing throughout the room. Elias kept up the pursuit, denying the fat man any chance to retaliate. Under the horrified gaze of everyone present, Elias had completely taken command of the situation. Violent strike detonated, the shockwaves from the impact causing the space to tremble intensely. Witnessing Elias's madness, the fat man couldn't help but gasp in shock that he had completely lost his mind. Elias closed the distance, his eyes locked onto the fat man, coldly calling his name. Elias whispered enigmatically, as if offering a lethal proposal, asking if the fat man would like to lend him a hand. Terror was etched across Orion's face as she realized Elias's true intention was to take the fat man's life. Not giving the fat man a moment to react, Elias, shrouded in a green aura of bloodlust, forcibly pinned him to the ground. Elias's eyes burned with ruthless intent. He was truly determined to finish off the fat man right then and there. The fat man screamed in despair, his blood-soaked face pleading for help. In his final moments before death, the fat man trembled as he uttered a desperate plea for salvation. A brutal blow descended, ending all of the fat man's hopes with a thunderous impact. A thunderous, unhesitating punch lands square in the face of the prison warden NPC. Elias stands coldly, leaving the warden NPC slumped at his feet, his face a mess of blood. Orion gasps in horror, calling out Elias's name as she witnesses the sudden outburst of violence. June 28, 2105, the anniversary of the divine race, a day that was supposed to be a celebration. But this blood-stained fist has cast a dark shadow over the festivities. The Sky Tower collapses, dragging the entire city into chaos. The gates of the abyss tear open, unleashing demons hungry to devour humanity. Amidst the carnage, Elias stands firm, his hand clenched tight after taking down the warden. Elias activates his energy, a fierce red aura erupting from his hand. With the power surging, Elias is enveloped by tightening streams of energy. Even surrounded by soldiers with spears leveled at him, Elias doesn't flinch. Elias whispers to himself that the purge of the divine race has only just begun. Elias's eyes glint with a lethal determination. The cold, sharp sound of shackles rings out as Elias is taken into custody. Thebes stands by, sipping wine, wondering why Elias would take such a reckless risk. Thebes senses that something is fundamentally wrong with this move. The wine glass in Thebes's hand trembles slightly in sync with his contemplation. The guards ask Thebes for his next order. Thebes orders Elias to be thrown into solitary confinement. Thebes declares that all crimes committed on the divine race's territory must face the judgment of the high priest. The surrounding crowd is struck with terror at the mention of the high priest. They fear Elias will face the death penalty for assaulting a member of the divine race. The onlookers whisper that Elias is truly finished now. Thebes orders an end to the banquet and demands everyone return to their quarters. Elias is immediately hauled away by the guards. A guard panics, frantically calling for a healer to save the warden. The warden NPC remains motionless on the floor as Elias is dragged away. Thebes eyes Elias with a smirk, mocking him for burning every bridge he had with his own hands. Thebes coldly asserts that Elias has slammed every door of hope shut on himself. Orion watches Elias with eyes full of anxiety and confusion. Elias's gaze is sharp and cold, hiding a terrifying composure in the face of imminent danger. Elias turns his back, his silhouette radiating unwavering resolve. Elias raises his shackled hand slightly, signaling a gesture filled with hidden meaning. Orion is stunned as she recognizes the sign. It's the reassurance signal Elias once used, leaving her to ponder his true schemes. Anxiety is etched across Orion's face. She cannot fathom why Elias remains so calm in this situation. In the middle of the chaos, Elias coldly commands the crowd to clear the way. Elias's proud demeanor remains unbroken, even while being hauled away as a prisoner. Night falls, and the surroundings descend into a deathly silence. 7 p.m. on June 28, within the detention sector of the divine race, the tension begins to escalate. A thunderous slap sends the nurse crashing down, blood splattering everywhere. The prison warden bellows in rage, berating the nurse for her carelessness. The warden's face is swollen from old wounds, his eyes burning with vengeful hatred. The warden screams, demanding to know where the person he considers a mere animal is being held. Humiliation strips the warden of all reason. He vows to take revenge at any cost. Darkness envelopes the detention area, where imprisoned souls await their fate. The solitary confinement zone for the awakened, a place from which no one can escape. Elias sits quietly in the dark cell, indifferent to the chaos stirring in the outside world. The guards gossip about transferring Elias to the holy prison tomorrow morning, confident in the strength of the black crystal bars. The two guards continue their conversation, asserting the absolute security of this detention facility. Suddenly, the steel door rattles violently from heavy blows coming from the other side. On the surveillance screen, the warden appears with a vicious expression, demanding the door be opened immediately. The warden storms in, his eyes locked onto Elias. Warden's footsteps echo sharply against the tile floor as he heads straight toward Elias's cell. Elias looks up, his eyes devoid of any fear at the warden's appearance. Elias's clothes stir slightly, signaling that a confrontation is about to break out. The warden stands on the other side of the bars, his sinister smile flickering in the shadows. The warden declares a death sentence for Elias, asserting the superiority of the god race. The warden screams, vowing to tear Elias apart from the inside before the sentence is carried out. Elias stands up, the air around him becoming heavy as the warden mentions Orion. The warden roars in a fit of rage, his face distorted and bloodied as he shouts that Elias has no idea what kind of catastrophe he has just caused. Elias coldly replies, affirming that he understands perfectly what he has done, while contemptuously calling the warden trash who will never comprehend his own true nature. Elias's gaze turns ice cold as he declares firmly that this game is far from over. Before the warden can react, Elias clenches his fist, ready to end everything right here. Elias lunges forward, closing in on the bars where the warden stands, exerting a terrifying pressure that sends the warden into a panic. The warden staggers back in shock, his eyes wide with fear as he realizes Elias is right in front of him. A burning aura surrounds Elias. He stares directly at the warden, challenging him to see who will be the one to kneel and beg first. In the middle of the city night, cold demands are issued. Orion holds the invitation in her hand, her eyes revealing deep contemplation at the sudden appearance of these strangers. Orion cannot hide her suspicion, questioning the urgency of holding the blessing ceremony in the middle of the night. Orion continues to press them on why the ceremony is taking place in a restricted area instead of being held publicly. Facing Orion's questions, the stranger replies in a firm tone, asserting that this is a direct order. The stranger forces Orion to comply, emphasizing that she shouldn't make things difficult for herself. With no other choice, Orion has no option but to accept this high-pressure demand. Elias watches Orion with anxiety, understanding that running away now would only cause more chaos. Orion reassures Elias that she will find a way to negotiate and overcome this dire situation. The group enters the Thebes estate mansion. The door opens and Orion steps inside. The heavy door slams shut, cutting off any path of escape behind Orion. Orion immediately searches for traces of those behind this in the dark room. Orion's gaze turns sharp as she observes her surroundings. Elias appears looking disheveled, sipping wine and mocking Orion's status. Elias sows seeds of fear, asserting that as long as one person rises to the top, the entire clan will benefit. Elias sits there, nonchalantly displaying his depravity in front of his younger sister. Orion shows no fear, she steps forward with a clear intention. Orion bluntly declares that she will never accept the position arranged by those in power. Elias sneers, showing disappointment at his sister's stubbornness. Elias threatens her, asking if she truly dares to defy the will of the superiors. Elias's gaze turns venomous as he reminds her of the tragic end awaiting those who dare to resist. Orion remains silent, her gaze steady and unwavering. Orion turns her back, declaring that she will leave this place on her own. She walks away decisively, leaving Elias sitting there in his arrogance. In a fit of rage, Elias smashes the wine glass against his own head. Elias's face is stained with blood, his manic grin revealing his cruelty. Elias screams, framing Orion for the attempted murder of a family member to set her up. Facing the accusation, Orion turns back in shock, realizing the deadly trap set by her brother. Elias growls in order to pursue her, his eyes filled with killing intent. Orion turns back, stunned, facing the terrifying pressure from Elias. Elias does not hesitate, launching a direct attack that forces Orion to defend herself in desperation. Elias's punch tears through the air, its terrifying force leaving Orion no time to react. The blow lands, and Orion is sent flying back in total helplessness. Frost erupts, and sharp crystal shards shatter, blocking every exit. Orion struggles to get up amidst the sharp ice thorns surrounding her on all sides. Flashes from Elias's frost powers rain down repeatedly. Orion grinds her teeth, her old wounds still aching, leaving her exhausted. Before Orion, Elias stands, a divine power that completely overwhelms any possibility of resistance. Elias coldly declares that if Orion steps out of that door, she will become a fugitive hunted to the ends of the earth. Elias's threat left Orion stunned, as everyone accompanying Orion would now have to pay the price. Orion roared in indignation, asserting that they had done nothing wrong. Amidst the heavy silence, the arrogant laughter of Elias echoed, dripping with mockery. Elias took a sip of wine, smugly boasting that he had wiped out every single witness within a 1-kilometer radius. With a twisted grin, Elias asked if Orion wanted to know the reason why. Elias stated firmly that no one dared to question the divine race, absolutely no one. Elias considered himself the law, the one who held the power of life and death in this place. Elias arrogantly declared that whatever he said happened in this room was the absolute truth. Elias sarcastically told Orion to be grateful for this arrangement. Elias smirked, claiming the only reason Orion was still standing there was because of the deep bond between Orion and Elias. Elias pointed out that their mutual concern was written clearly on both their faces. Orion went silent, sensing the mounting danger closing in. Elias confessed that because of that very bond, he had forced Orion to belong to him. Elias's eyes turned bloodshot, vowing to tear Orion apart at any cost. Elias contemptuously called them lowlifes from the mud, lucky to have even set foot in divine territory. Elias ignited with rage, his eyes blazing as he retorted against the insults from Elias. Patience had run out, a berserk fury erupted in Elias's gaze. Nameless villain laughed maniacally, triumphantly bragging about imprisoning a wretch in the Black Devil Crystal Dungeon, and soon the victim would be dragged to the holy prison to suffer the most horrific punishments. Faced with the threat, Orion didn't flinch. She summoned sharp blocks of ice around her, resolutely shouting for the nameless villain to stay away. A blinding surge of electrical energy exploded in Elias's palm, signaling a powerful attack about to be unleashed. Orion's eyes burned with indignation. She would choose death rather than let the nameless villain touch her. Elias stood his ground, his hands clenched tightly in tension as he continuously stepped back, shouting at the nameless villain to keep his distance. Nameless villain wore a sinister smile, declaring he would break Orion's will before forcing her to watch as Elias was executed. A thunderous strike descended, leaving Elias stunned by the overwhelming power the nameless villain had just unleashed. A horrific explosion tore through the room, the ground shattering under the pressure of the nameless villain's potent magic. Elias looked on in shock toward the cloud of dust where the wall had been completely destroyed in the aftermath of the collision with the nameless villain. Orion whipped around, her face reflecting absolute panic and astonishment at the unexpected turn in the battle. Tears streamed down her cheeks. Orion couldn't believe what was unfolding before her eyes regarding Elias. The weapon hit the ground with a hollow thud, sliding across the floor after colliding with Elias's ice barrier. From within the thick shroud of dust, Elias stepped out, surrounded by a brilliant purple magical aura. Each decisive step taken by Elias weighed heavily on the already suffocating atmosphere. The nameless villain collapsed, coughing up blood, yet still stubbornly muttering that nothing could break the Black Devil Crystal Prison. The nameless villain trembled, his eyes wide with terror as he saw Elias had escaped, stammering as he asked how the other had managed it. Elias replied coldly, asserting that it was a secret the nameless villain would never have the chance to know. On the night of June 28, 2105, at 8:28 p.m., searchlights from the guard towers swept across the prison grounds, which were fortified by rows of heavy-duty barbed wire. In the ward for the awakened, Elias sat huddled in the corner of his cell, quietly scribbling something on a piece of paper. Deep in concentration, Elias's hands trembled slightly as he recorded critical information. Hyun-suk and Bae-man-suk were on guard duty outside, with Bae-man-suk grumbling anxiously that Elias would surely stir up trouble again. Hyun-suk looked at Bae-man-suk with a gaze full of unease. He was truly terrified that Elias would find a way to escape just like last time. Bae-man-suk tried to reassure Hyun-suk, insisting that the situation remained firmly under control. Bae-man-suk confidently explained the cell structure, reinforced with 3 layers of black magic crystal doors, while emphasizing that the 2 of them were guarding it closely. Hyun-suk stared at the door, firmly convinced that no one could possibly escape from this place. Outside the building, the light spilling from the cell windows into the darkness created an oppressive, silent scene. Bae-man-suk ordered everyone to retreat. He wanted the area surrounding the building to be completely clear. Suddenly, a bizarre creature appeared mid-air, hovering as the subordinates followed Bae-man-suk's orders to withdraw. Monster informed Bae-man-suk that all guards had been dismissed and simultaneously activated its manifestation status. Elias held a jade pendant in his hand, wondering whether he should shatter it now to summon assistance. However, Elias hesitated. He understood that he couldn't leave the prison for too long if he wanted his plan to succeed. Elias reminded himself that timing was the decisive factor. He had to act at the most critical moment. Elias recalled the rules of this world. Each high-level item was limited to only 4 resurrections. Elias had spent days grinding through the Spirit Jade Labyrinth 20 times at the academy just to collect those 4 precious pairs of pendants. 1 pair had been used to save his mother, and another he left with her before venturing into this prison himself. Elias did the math. There were only 2 pairs left. Elias knew he had only one chance to carry out this plan. With his resolve set, Elias snapped the pendant, declaring that he would end everything as quickly as possible. A surge of power erupted, and a voice echoed, vowing to support Elias with everything they had. Space around them warped, and Elias appeared in the center of the cell alongside a mysterious woman. The woman looked at Elias in astonishment, unable to believe her eyes at his sudden appearance. Elias's appearance completely shifted the tides, striking terror into those present. Elias walked forward silently, his cold gaze fixed directly on his target. Elias coldly declared that his sole purpose for coming here was to take his enemy's life. Gannicus was shaken, his scarred face betrayed his fear as he realized Elias had escaped his cell. Gannicus screamed in a panic, urging his companion to strike and take Elias down immediately. Gannicus threatened to slaughter the man's family if he didn't finish Elias off quickly. Elias stood there, emanating a frigid killing intent that seemed to suffocate the air around them. Gannicus gloated, convinced that with his previous experience of defeating Elias, victory was well within his reach. Gannicus kept on taunting, trying to provoke Elias into acting first, even though Elias remained calm and collected. Elias clenched his fist and a violent purple energy began to surge around his body. Elias coldly repeated the promise he made years ago, leaving Gannicus stunned. Elias's eyes were sharp as blades, there was not a hint of hesitation in his movements. Gannicus wasn't intimidated, on the contrary, he challenged Elias to use his full power to finish him off. Mansuk was shell-shocked, unable to comprehend what was happening between Elias and Gannicus. Not giving Gannicus a chance to react, Elias activated his ultimate technique, delivering a thunderous blow to his enemy. The terrifying power of the technique obliterated everything in its path. Gannicus was sent flying into the air, completely defenseless against the lethal blow. Mansuk was dazed, unable to believe his eyes as he saw his ally defeated so easily. Mansuk roared in anger, viewing Gannicus's actions as a blatant betrayal. Elias cared nothing for the threats, the killing intent within him surging more violently by the second. Purple energy coiled around Elias's hands like venomous snakes. Mansuk was slammed hard against the wall, his body broken and weary. Mansuk still struggled to get up, his face filled with extreme bewilderment at the overwhelming power. Elias activated his spatial prison, completely sealing off Mansuk's only escape route. Mansuk realized with horror that he was surrounded by walls of pitch-black energy. Mansuk frantically called out for his subordinates, but only a deadly silence answered him. Despair was etched clearly on Mansuk's face as he realized he was completely alone. Elias wore a cold smile, the smile of someone who held the power of life and death. Elias coldly asserted that no one within a kilometer could help Mansuk now. It was the very same ruthless order that Mansuk had issued himself. Gannicus sipped his drink, nonchalantly recounting how he had evacuated all the civilians from the area. Gannicus arrogantly claimed that no one dared to question the orders of the divine class. Mansuk was shocked to realize he had been sold out by his own ally. The name Orion was uttered, sounding like a death sentence for the man standing before him. Elias's presence made the atmosphere feel suffocating, almost impossible to breathe. Elias bluntly declared that whatever happened next had nothing to do with Mansuk, he had already been erased from the game. Elias activated his ultimate skill, Star Tremor Wall, creating a purple energy barrier that enveloped the space, leaving Gannicus and Mansuk no time to react. Gannicus stood stunned, his eyes wide with panic at the overwhelming power that had just appeared. Mansuk was locked behind pitch-black bars, screaming in despair as he realized the tide had completely turned. Elias stood with his back turned, surrounded by a powerful aura of purple energy, coldly staring straight at the imprisoned Mansuk. Mansuk trembled as he asked about Elias's plan, but was met only with a deathly silence. Elias's gaze was ice-cold, completely unmoved by Mansuk's desperate pleas. Elias raised his finger, declaring that the judgment day of the divine race had officially begun. A secret letter containing a chilling threat from Liu King has been delivered. An assassination plot against Orion is being orchestrated to unfold this very night. The fat man, battered and blood-soaked, screams in despair as he is cornered. Elias stands coldly, wreathed in a brilliant purple magic, threatening the fat man with Orion's safety. Left with no other choice, the fat man frantically offers a desperate deal to save his own life. Elias remains unmoved, his cold gaze piercing through every temptation the fat man tries to present. Elias's hand ignites with purple magic, ready to unleash a punitive strike. A dry snap echoes as the fat man is brutally struck down by Elias's attack. Without a hint of mercy, Elias lands a direct blow, leaving the fat man unable to react. Blood splatters with every rhythmic strike from Elias. The fat man can only shriek in panic. The fat man screams in agony, realizing he has no chance of winning against Elias's overwhelming power. The fat man maintains a twisted grin, even as his body is drenched in fresh blood. The image of Orion flashes in Elias's mind, urging him to end this battle quickly. Elias coldly declares that every blow he lands is driven by his will to protect Orion. A heart-wrenching scream escapes the fat man as Elias delivers a brutal finishing blow. Elias unleashes a powerful technique, crushing the fat man's resistance. The fat man begs in desperation as Elias's power tightens its grip on him. Elias coldly delivers the final word. Every strike serves as a verdict for the fat man. The fat man collapses completely, blood pooling on the floor. He is no longer capable of resistance. Elias's fist glows with magic, prepared for the final strike. The fat man is terrified by the overwhelming power Elias is displaying. A powerful strike renders the fat man completely subdued. The fat man recoils in fear, begging Elias not to come any closer. With his final breath, the fat man promises to confess every sin if only Elias spares his life. The fat man trembles, his eyes revealing absolute terror in the face of impending death. The fat man shouts in despair, trying to cling to a final sliver of hope for survival. Elias's shadow looms over the fat man, signaling the end for the traitor. Elias looks down at the fat man, preparing to unleash the final blow. Elias raises his hand, purple magic erupting as he prepares to execute his judgment. Blood soaks the fat man's clothes. The battle ends in an eerie silence. Elias focuses his energy, dark power swirling around his hand as he grinds out that it is meant for him alone. The fat man is crushed by giant stone hands, blood splattering amidst a deafening blast as he cries out in despair. In excruciating pain, the fat man roars in resentment, insisting that the madman will never escape these crimes. A cold sentence is passed, declaring that the target will forever be branded as a holy traitor. The fat man laughs maniacally in a pool of blood, cursing his enemy, vowing that his entire clan will burn for what has been done. Elias looks down with indifference, casually retorting to the fat man's curse with a mocking question. The dry sound of the fat man's bones shattering echoes, followed by a heart-rending scream in the darkness. Elias clenches his fist, the ring on his finger flashes with an eerie light, signaling a finishing blow is about to descend. Violent impact explodes, and darkness consumes the target in absolute brutality. Elias stands there, shrouded in dark aura, showing no expression toward the death that has just occurred. Dark power erupts once more, sweeping everything nearby away in a whirlwind of destruction. The system displays a notification regarding the activation of the Star Prison, a place where the souls of the defeated are imprisoned. Another explosion erupts, causing the surrounding space to tremble violently under the pressure of the magic. Elias stands silently amidst the aftermath, facing Orion, who is stunned by his brutality. Orion is speechless, completely horrified by the terrifying scene that just unfolded before her eyes. Orion stammers as she asks Elias about the fate of the person just annihilated, her eyes filled with anxiety and fear. On the floor, blood still drips from the remains of the defeated, the air thick with the stench of death. Elias looks straight into Orion's eyes, calmly confirming that the enemy has truly been erased. Orion lowers her head, her voice trembling as she apologizes to Elias for what happened, regret clearly visible on her face. Orion blames herself, believing that all these tragedies are entirely her fault. Elias sternly denies it, asserting that eliminating that enemy was his goal and that Orion need not bear such heavy guilt. Orion remains inconsolable, insisting that the wretch deserved to die 1,000 times over for his crimes. As magical debris falls to the floor, Orion maintains her deep hatred for the one who has just fallen. Orion anxiously asks about Elias's future, wondering what will become of him after this bloody battle. Orion fears that even if they fend off the guards, someone will inevitably discover this crime scene sooner or later. The city in the distance glimmers with lights, a place where danger still lurks, waiting for them. Orion hurriedly grabs Elias's hand, urging him to leave this place immediately. Orion insists that Elias must escape the city at all costs. Orion decides to cause a commotion herself to create a diversion, giving Elias a chance to escape. Orion looks at Elias with eyes full of trust, encouraging him by saying he is strong and will overcome everything. The haunting touch on her shoulder startles Orion, and she gasps in shock as she calls out the person's name. Elias looks straight into Orion's eyes, his cold expression softening slightly as he promises that everything will be all right. In the silent night, Samuel stands quietly before the castle, where the conspiracy of the scapegoat is gradually taking shape. Orion cannot hide her panic, her eyes filled with anxiety upon learning that Liu King is about to appear. Elias maintains a chilling composure, his eyes glowing with determination before facing the challenge ahead.